What's up, world? It's your boy Gerald Cooper here for the Geek Goodness Podcast Network, and this is our first housekeeping episode. So this will not be entertaining. This is just getting out some info, explaining a few things, and making a couple of announcements. You know, I could talk about summer schedules, and I could talk about losing one of our members for a few months. Shout out to House Lopez over there. Actually, Manuel, who's on primarily, he's done some pretty cool stuff on Random Geek Goodness, but he's one of our key members over at Old Pods in the New. He had a little baby, as we mentioned. Actually, today he shot us a very just adorable picture of her with the biggest smile in the world. So that was it's actually rather life affirming when you think about it. So shout out to House Lopez there. So I could make every excuse in the book why we haven't been on schedule and the new shows haven't come. But ultimately it's on me. I'm the captain of this ship, and if stuff doesn't run properly, it falls squarely on my shoulders. But we're getting it together. We had a nice little text meeting today, and we're going to get some things square. We got some new stuff coming, and this is the place where we're going to announce all of that. And I mentioned Old Pods, by the Old Pods in the New is our Game of Thrones show where we review Game of Thrones from 1 to done. We are actually just finished up 3 weeks ago, being just finished up season 1, and we are going to get back to recording episode 1, season 2 on Sunday, right, guys? Sunday. And we're going to get back on schedule. We're probably going to drop multiple episodes in a day as it gets closer to the final season of Game of Thrones, just to get caught up, so we're nice and even for when that season starts up. The last season of Game of Thrones, I went from life affirming to wanting to jump off of something. The last season of Game of Thrones, jeez. But like I said, we're probably going to double up a few weeks on episodes, just so we hit Game of Thrones as soon as the new season arrives, and we can go week to week on that. That's going to be actually for, we're all going to miss Game of Thrones, but that's going to be a good time watching the show, how it ends and who's the hero. Jaime Lannister, excuse me. So that's that for, again, anybody who's, all 7 of you who are looking forward to Old Pod. Sorry about that, but we're going to get back on track starting this week. Next order of business. I've got this idea for a show that I'm going to start putting together very, very soon. I'm calling it Lest We Forget. So basically, I'm taking all of my favorite stuff, everything, like literally everything. It's kind of going to be the embodiment of the Geek Goodness Podcast, where I look back at all of my favorite stuff, like no matter what it is, if it's movies or TV or comics or sporting events and sporting moments. I'm going to look back on those on their anniversary, look at some of the reviews, look at some of the comments, look at some of the things that were going on in the world at the time, and get into reviews and comments and probably weird little deep dives. So that's going to be interesting. And for that one, the first couple episodes, I'm going to go solo to get my feet wet. But from there, I'm going to start reaching out to some of my pod brethren. They're just some brilliant guys out there, and ladies, brilliant people, excuse me, out there doing some great stuff. And I want them to, to get their perspective on some of this stuff. What's going to be funny is they're going to hate a lot of the stuff I love, which is going to make for some really good entertainment. So look out for that soon. I want to say The first one's going to be, I've got to look through my list. I don't have it here. I'm going to look at Fight Club. I believe that's going to be the first one. I'm going to look back at Villains, and if you heard me over there on the WWPN doing the Ring of Honor review show, which somehow it has slipped my mind, the name. I did a review there, and it's probably going to be a lot of the same, but Villains by Queens of the Stone Age. So look out for those. Those should be fun and interesting. Next up, this next thing isn't really a show. It's a cheat in a lot of ways. So we're just going to call it Lost Episodes. And this sort of came about because of technical difficulties. We had I had a great show over on the WWP, and for Hour of Honor, look at that, I remember, shaming myself. But when I was doing Hour of Honor, I wanted to do a show called Putting Them Over, which we're doing here. And it never quite fit what the WWPN was doing. So I brought it over here. And I had this great interview with Tim Kail, who's the host of Work of Wrestling. Tim is phenomenal. The way his mind works, the depth of thought in what he does. He's a pro wrestling, primarily WWE, but he's a pro wrestling commentator, just like, most of my pie friends are. And it was just sort of like a revelation to hear his commentary and where he took it, as opposed to nuts and bolts and what's going to happen next and why Vince McMahon's a jerk and all of the stuff that we as pro wrestling marks say all the time. Tim looked at it from the narrative perspective. He looks at it from a writer's perspective. And it was just tremendous. And I knew I just had to talk to this guy and pick his brain a little bit. We had a conversation that was awesome, long and awesome. And I couldn't do anything. It was my first phone interview. I couldn't do anything about the static. I had a bad connection, like an actual physical connection, and I couldn't do anything about it. I rescheduled on Tim. Tim was very pressed for time, and we got this great showdown, but a lot of noise, a lot of background noise, a lot of feedback, and just to double up here, our first episode here on the Geek Goodness podcast was supposed to be a Black Panther review show. And that was great. A lot of, I'm putting some folks out there. You know who you are, Dave. People had a lot of nerves because this was their first time podcasting, and believe me, I've felt that. Nancy and Manuel know that I felt that. We're gonna leave that right there. So we didn't just get through it. It's an excellent show, but we weren't ready with equipment, and there's a ton of noise. So making this extremely long story very short right now, when something happens that's just out of our control, and for instance, getting Tim back and getting the guys together all in one place live, in the same room, isn't the easiest thing in the world. So if there is a technical difficulty, it's going to go to it's going to go into the pile. It's going to go into the lost episode pile. But again, the shows are very good. In my view, hopefully you like them too. The shows are very good. So I don't ever want those conversations to get to never see the light of day, basically. So lost episodes so far. Hopefully we don't have too many more of these, but so far it's the original Putting Them Over with Tim Kail and the Black Panther review literally the day after Black Panther came out, and you're going to be hearing that soon. I'm still a little pissy about that one. So the next thing we are working on is a show. Right now, I'm not even going to say that it's a show because it isn't. It's an experiment. I want the Geek Goodness podcast to encompass everything, really, from looked at through the lens of a guy who's read comic books his whole life, a guy who loves science fiction and film and all that stuff, so I want to hit on these other topics, but through a geek lens. And I want a relationship show. I want a love show. So it's not a show yet. I've reached out to some really smart, really insightful folks, and so many people that everybody's schedule is just insane. And the thing that I've heard back most is that they love to do it, but they just don't have the time, and they couldn't be consistent with it and everything else. So I reached out to somebody. I'm not even going to say her name here. I reached out to her, and she was about it, and we're going to do a test run. If it's working, it's going to be me, which, Mr. Divorced and Jaded over here. I don't know how well that's going to work, but it's going to be me and her, and we're going to sit down. We're going, she came up with a very interesting topic. I formatted the show, and we're going to see how it works. If the chemistry is there, if the conversation's there, we're going to see. And if it isn't, doesn't come out, try again. But if this test becomes a show, then we're going to ride with it. So as yet untitled, maybe you're going to get a relationship show soon. Manuel, who was Manuel and Family, hey Jenna, who I talked about a little earlier, he's working on a live commentary show. Now, I talked to Manuel earlier. He sent me kind of a very brief synopsis of what the show is going to be, and of course I don't have it in front of me, so he's going to be in my inbox cursing me out a little bit later. But he's got and we've been talking about this, and he's kind of streamlined it and everything. Again, yet untitled, but this is coming soon. So imagine Mystery Theater 3000, right? And Manuel has seen the film, but his partner has not. So they're going to give commentary. Again, I don't know if he's going to edit it down a little bit, or, like we get a 3-hour movie, or we going to get a 3-hour podcast. I'm not sure how he's going to do it, but he's tightening all of those details up now. And when the show comes out, he'll totally contradict everything I just said here. So, but look out for that. That's going to be fun and interesting. And I want to get on that show because there aren't a lot of movies I haven't seen, so coming up with something that's like totally new to me is going to be a good time, especially if it's bad, because I'm going to shred it to pieces. Okay, lastly, one of the shows that this is an actual show. We got 2 shows that aren't really shows, but this is an actual show. So I had an interview with I am back. Sorry about that, family. Moving to a new place, and it's a very quiet neighborhood, but the little mutt from hell, and I do mean hell, wants to start up. And I've had no sleep for the past 3 days because this dog wakes up at the crack of dawn. I think the people put him out, and he just yelps until, they come back. Insane. Sorry about that. So what was I saying? Right. So we had a great conversation with did I say Ebony Butler? I'm sorry. We had a great conversation on it's going to come out on Putting Them Over with Ebony Butler of Metal and Coffee. Ebony's just great. Like that's just all there is to it. She was fun to talk to. It's a I think Ebony was pressed for time that day, if I remember right, and we tried to, me, I'll talk all day. We tried to keep it at a reasonable runtime, but some very interesting stuff about women and women of color in the metal world, and I really wanted to have a deep dive there about her place in the metal world. So that's coming up, but right after that, Ebony is going to bring a version of Metal and Coffee to the Geek Goodness Podcast Network, which we are super excited about. I'm glad to have a music show. I'm excited. I've been trying to get a hip hop show going, and that's not going so great. But we're going to get there. But I really wanted to cover music, and she's smart. You hear me say smart and insightful all the time, but it's true. I love people who dig a little deeper than the surface. And she definitely does that. So she's going to bring a version of Metal and Coffee over here. She's got YouTube channel. She blogs. We're going to put all of that information out because she's kind of everywhere right now. And I'm interested to see what she comes up with that's different than what she's already doing. I'm very intrigued by this. So hopefully that's the second she lets me know she's ready to go, you're going to get the conversation with Ebony and myself, and you're going to get Metal and Coffee geek style. So that's going to be a good time. There's some other stuff I'm working on getting people in. You would be surprised at how folks really want to be a part, but they between fear or not having the time, I don't know, folks. I really, just as a huge sidebar, one of the things that's very important to me personally is to have female voices on this platform in this genre, I guess you want to call it. Women like comics, and women are, nerds and geeks, and they can, speak on these subjects as eloquently as any man. And I would like more female voices. So if you are within the sound of my voice, and you're a lady who's into anything geeky, get at me. Geraldell Cooper on Twitter. Leon Cooper. I'm trying to streamline this, folks. Leon Cooper on Facebook. And let me know what your interests are. I promise you, we will find a place for you. It's not about representation necessarily for me. It's really about everybody having a place. I guess it is about representation, but everybody has a place. And I want to show that there are many sides to these passions that we have, and the female perspective is important for me to have here. So, all right, that's the end of my ramble because I could go on. You know what? I am going to go on. One more thing. Okay. I want to do a horror show, and I have a very specific idea. Ladies, if you are within the sound of my voice and you are into horror anything, let me know. Geraldell Cooper on Twitter. Leon Cooper, yeah, there you go. Leon Cooper on Facebook. Get at me. Okay. That's it. That went way longer than it should have. Sorry about that. And the next time you hear from us, it's going to be on Old Pods on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Look for us. Listen to it. It's going to be great because that's actually an excellent episode of Game of Thrones that we're going to go over. Yeah, subscribe, check us out, love us, like us, don't hate us, please. I don't know how I would deal with that. And I'm out. So hopefully I'll be talking to you soon.